Good morning, family and friends. How are you today? I feel like you're a little sleepy. Can I just be honest? I feel like you're a little sleepy. And okay, it's okay to be a little sleepy. My name's Anabeth. If I haven't met you, I'm usually singing up here. They've done a dangerous thing and given me authority to preach the word of the Lord. Is that it, Tom? Oh, shoot. Guys, we're finishing this FOTS series, our British farts series, Fruit of the Spirit, and we've kind of gone in order, and you've been doing this journey with us for 8 weeks, if you didn't know it, 2 months of talking about the kind of fruit that followers of Jesus should have in their lives. And so I wanted to give you a mini heart attack. Next Sunday starts Advent. That means you are in the hustle and bustle of the holiday season. We're going to start the series in Advent from the book of, smart people say Habakkuk. In my neck of the woods, they say Habakkuk. And sometimes they even say Habakkuk, you know. That's a small book in the Old Testament towards the end of it. It's going to be great to talk about the theme of hope. So please make plans to come. And just, how many of you don't feel like you need more hope in your life? That's my word of the year, which I'm really grateful for this year. But what I didn't realize is that it meant my year was going to be really, really hard, because you don't get a word like hope from the Lord unless you need it. So thank you, Lord. Anyway, come together next week and start talking about hope, all right? If you have forgotten why we're talking about the Spirit, it's because, you know, we had an election this year, and as we prayed as a church, we just started thinking about, reminded of what people of the Lord look like. People of love and joy, peace, patience, all the things. Galatians 5. What we really were trying to do was let you know that these things don't lives just by remember Jay, the first Sunday, he did a hilarious illustration of the tree, and he's like, the tree's like peach, and it's like pop, and a peach pops out, you know? This correct. The tree is like, I want to be a peach tree. I want to be a peach tree. But the reality is to have the fruit bear on the tree, there's a lot of indirect habits we have to have. And so every week, you spiritual disciplines that we think form the type of things that we talk about. So that means that, if I want to be a patient person, I can't just be patient today, Anabeth. Be more patient today. Within 5 minutes, I'm yelling at children. There's other things that I do in order that patience would be the byproduct or the fruit of have with the Lord. And so today they hazed me and gave me my favorite and also least favorite fruit, which Can we talk about the week I had? It lacked lots of self-control. It was like at every turn I was tested in my to be self-controlled. And I felt like the Lord was being mean to me. He wasn't. He was just have me. It's hard to preach about things you haven't gone through yourself. And so every time a person gets up here and shares the truth of the Lord, there's a good chance that they're going through things because they should be speaking from a place of integrity. And so this week I had lots of practice with self-control. And I didn't always get it right. I failed quite a bit, but we'll get to that in a minute. How many of you feel like in times in your life that your emotions pull you in a million different directions? It looks like this. Usually you do something and you're thinking, oh, I should have responded differently, but I didn't. I responded in anger, or I responded in fill in the blank. And a lot of times you have the question of, why am I keep on doing that thing? You're not alone. If somebody in this room would say, oh, I never have that. I never have unholy desires. I struggle, really. Just ask their children to tell you. Ask their roommate or their best friend in high school or whoever's around them and knows them. They can point out their unholy desires, their struggles. Even this week, I was up starting the week with really bad back pain, and I had a huge back pain for almost 2 years in the last 2 years and had a surgery a year ago. My back's been doing so good, and just this week my back was and I was so discouraged by it, but I wasn't really saying how discouraged I was because I was going to be in control of my emotions. I was not going to let this back pain make me be grumpy or impatient or just a disaster to be around, to be honest. And so I was in control of my emotions. And my daughter decided she wanted to scramble some eggs on Saturday morning. That was yesterday. And I'm like, great, good. Yeah, get the pan out. Just, you can do it with the eggs. And I'm like, I can tell she's struggling. She had turned the pan on like 20 minutes before, so it's real hot. And I'm like, have the eggs in the pan yet? And all I wanted to do was sit on the couch because, again, my back was killing me. And she's like, yeah, I'm getting it, Mom, I'm getting it. And I'm like, what? Put the eggs in the pan, honey. And finally, I'm like, fine, I'll just go help her. And so I grudgingly, I'm like, be in control, don't be grumpy, you got this. And I walk in, sweetie, so the hot, so I have to turn it down. Just crack the pan, scrambling eggs. And, I'm in control. And she just looks over at me, she goes, why are you so angry? And I'm like, I'm not angry. I'm like, I am so angry right now, and it has nothing to do with eggs. My back is killing me, and I just want to sit on the couch and be mad about it. I didn't say any of that, but I was just, how dare you call me out when I'm being so self-controlled in my anger? That was just like one of a million little opportunities to practice self-control. Failing completely. Guys, we all have these unhealthy little habits, desires. They manifest in different ways. Some of you today, and it's not really an active thing, it's more of an inactive thing. You have desires to do things, but fear encases them, and you have a hard time getting into action. So you sit in places of fear or depression, and you can't get active around something that would be healthy for your life, with your body, or spiritual walk with the Lord, or in your job. All healthy desires, and you are not alone. Every single person has. And I've noticed in my own life that the more I try to control it, the worse it goes. So why in the heck is self-control? Real confusion. But the Lord gives us a clue on how to do something of self-control. Because I usually think it's something I have to. Self-control is an action. It's a verb. It's something I've got to produce. I must act controlled in order not to be angry. But if I know that self-control is a part of a list of gifts from the Lord, gift of the Lord, if I can remember that it's not about my willpower or self-determination, it's a gift. Crap, I'm doing it wrong. But how do I do that, Lord? Like, how do I not depend on myself when I feel like it is up to me? Well, Galatians 5, we've been preaching it every single Sunday, has the key. It's dependency on the Spirit. You see, in Galatians 5, verse 16, it says, walk by the Spirit, and you will not gratify the desires of your flesh. Walk by the Spirit, and you won't gratify your impulses. See, the Spirit empowers us to live differently, resist our fleshly desires. Self-control is not trying. I still can't get this, y'all. I'm still learning this, like yesterday. It's about being more surrendered to the Lord. Like, have you ever tried to stop something cold turkey? I have. It's like, I basically was born with a cake pop in my hand. You're like, what the heck? That means my mom's favorite story to tell, she had 5 babies, is that and I have 4 brothers, so I'm the only girl. All I wanted to do was wear pink and eat sugar and cake. Thank you, Mother, for eating cake every day while you were pregnant with me, because I came out with a cake pop in my hand. I was born really liking sugar. I'm like a Christmas apple. The 4 basic food groups, candy, corn. Amen. This side of the room knows the Lord. Okay. And so I was born this way. So that means around dieting and unhealthy desires, sugar. There's all the studies. Sugar's not great for you. Darn it. If only sugar were broccoli to our bodies. It's not. Anyway, but the more I try to control that area of my life, like, I don't know, maybe a year ago, I was like, I'm eating 0 sugar at all. Out of nowhere, that didn't go so. I lasted for a little while, but I still craved it, still wanted it, and got really tired. And then I was like, I'm going to go have a Justin's peanut butter cup because they come straight from the Lord, especially the ones. Anyway, and so this doesn't go well. It's exhausting to try to control yourself if your desires just cold turkey. But self-control is more about freedom in God. So this byproduct, in order to walk in being self-controlled, has more to do with other parts of your life versus like me trying not to eat. It has to do with me being invited to places of freedom that I actually don't know who I am, places I have not experienced the love of God or the peace of Christ or experienced joy, the other fruits of the Spirit. It's hard to be self-controlled and experience these other things with the Lord. This invitation to freedom that self-control offers is spoken of in John 8. It says this, John 8:36 says, if the Son sets you free, you'll be free indeed. That scripture is so powerful. If Jesus Christ himself sets you free of something, you actually will be free. How many of you feel cynical as crap about that? You're like, no one's actually ever really free. You usually fall back right into it. We see that a lot. But the scripture here says when Jesus Christ comes into an area of your life, sets you free of something, first off by salvation of sin and death, but then other things in your life like addiction or, I don't know, maybe you're the most impatient person and everybody now says you're the most patient person they know. What you are free indeed as it comes through this invitation of freedom that only is offered in Jesus, not offered by your striving or your plan to get free, or any other person's words to you, only offered in Jesus. Self-control isn't about being bound up and restricted by rules and regulations. It's about being free from what binds you. It allows you to say no to lesser things so that you say yes to greater things. Every week, as a musician and leader of worship in this church, I have the opportunity to pick something you're going to sing. And I believe that's a very big responsibility. God's invited me to help form your theology through things you sing. So every week I get in front of my computer with all these songs, back at what our church has been singing, and I'm in the room with you, and I'm wondering, what have they been responding to? What feels right now? What songs are hitting the room? What songs y'all just look at me like, shame on you. I'm just kidding. What songs just feel stale? And every week I have my guitar out and I worship through these songs, because I have a greater vision of what God's able to do in a space as we worship him. And that's a discipline, right? You see, self-control requires a partnership. So self-control, I said, is freeing work done in us through Jesus, but you have to say yes to it. I have to say, okay, Lord, I'm going to sit down and get my guitar out and worship to songs that I've played 2 million times, but that the church needs to sing to you. And that doesn't make me holy. There's a discipline, because I have a greater vision for the bigger thing of the power of worship when we gather and sing songs together. If I didn't care, if I just thought, yeah, the church just what they've done for thousands of years, blah, 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 it's fine, then I wouldn't practice. Because most of the songs, like the song that we just sang, I know all the chords by heart and all the words. But somehow every time I still want to practice it because I want to see, God, where are you at in that song? What lyric is really going to hit the room? What is the invitation to freedom within that song? This is discipline in my life. And here's the thing, again, this doesn't make me holy. The thing I'm most present as I'm living into the greater glory of the Lord because do that job. And it's my joy to partner with him and practice the time it takes each week to craft a set list to play my guitar. Do you know this in your own life? Do you know an area where you're like, man, it's my joy to spend time in this because I know it's at God's invitation. Maybe it's around the way you think about your business and how it's run. It's around making things with your hands. Maybe it's around painting because you come alive when you paint. And even if you're for money, it's something of God releasing his life out of you and through you, and you need to paint because you're more alive, and then guess what? You're more patient that week. Does this make sense? The painting actually creates more patience in your life. This is indirect habits. This whole sermon series on fruits of the Spirit has been about getting in touch with these in your life that God is the greater thing. but it does require partnering. How do we partner with the Lord? It's through daily little decisions. The little decision, I'm like, okay, it's this time this week that I'm going to spend crafting a set list. I need space for it because it's for the greater good, and it's what God's asked me to do. There's a picture of what this looks like, this daily decision-making stuff. It's not easy and it's not fun. But in Luke 9, verse 23, it says, whoever wants to be must deny themselves and take up their cross daily. Guys, this is not a fun verse. Deny yourself. What? I really like myself. I really want what I want. This is the decision-making daily. If you have this memorized in your life, it's like, okay, this morning I'm waking up, Lord, I'm denying my fleshly desires, and I'm taking up my cross and heading out to day. Your life is different. Self-control is just happening because it's not about you. It's just this fruit that's happening because you yourself to start the day. I know this stuff is counter. Even what I just said sounds backwards. It's like, wait a minute, you're telling me to give up myself in order to gain self-control. Feel opposite. They are not. They are not opposite. Surrender your life to the freedom that's only offered in Jesus, the more self-controlled you become. Now, the good news is that we see all throughout the scriptures an invitation to not really do much alone. The Lord made us for community. He made the church his plan to the world. The church is not one person. It's all you messy people. And so even in self-control, there's an invitation to do it with community. Well, in Proverbs 27:17, it says, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. Guys, you're not going to do well trying to practice any of the fruit of the Spirit alone. Like, I don't know if you're like this. It's like I'm such a deep perfectionist that I don't really want to practice trying to be a more patient person in front of people. I don't want Jovi, heaven forbid, in Sunday school. Like, my mom was so angry yesterday just making eggs. Please, you know, I don't want her to confess that. I don't want to look bad. So I was like, Jovi, I'm so sorry that I was angry, and please don't tell anyone. Well, I'm going to practice being less angry just between you and me, honey. That doesn't work. It's way better when I include somebody that's trusted and say, you know, I am struggling so much with just like flash pan anger, just cooking the eggs, you know, and I don't love that. Would you pray with me? And like anytime the Lord, would you pray that God would fill me with patience? Include other people. Here it says it sharpens, meaning it just makes you more defined. The sharpening of your edges makes you look more like Jesus. You're more defined. You know who you are. As we're ending Fruit of the Spirit series, I think this gets really overwhelming. It's like, okay, so I've got to have, if you're like me, alcoholic, perfectionist type, you're like, okay, so I have to become more loving, more joyful, more peaceful, more patient, more kind, more good, more faithful. It just feels like a whole lot of work. And how do I do this, Lord? None of those things a lot of the time. I love Philippians 6 because it alludes to being formed by the Lord is not quick. It's a lifelong journey. I get most frustrated like I was this week. I was so impatient this week, you guys. I was so discouraged by my back hurting. I was so to anger because of it. The Lord says this to us, he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion. Anytime I grow discouraged in this process of fruit, I mean, don't you wish you could just stand there and be like, be more patient, and all of a sudden it was like, boop, and you're like, oh, patience, I am patient. I don't know indirect work, but that's not how it is. But I love this verse because we hold on to it as a promise. I know I asked to be more patient, as I asked to practice self-control, being self-controlled, but somehow not being self-controlled. Ooh, Lord, you're going to finish this work to completion in me because you promised it, and you're not a liar. All the good work he's doing in you to be like him will be completed work. But it's not like, if only it were a microwave, if only I could nuke it in 30 seconds and get it done, I'd love that. It's not. It's not. It's more like a real slow cooker, like the one you've had since you got married and it doesn't really work 16 hours instead of 8. It's more like that. You know? This week, we've given you disciplines every time we've done this. Disciplines of abstaining and engagement. And the reason is, I know there's more than 2 temperaments. Please don't email me. But there's 2 major temperaments. Are doers, a lot of times extroverts, and you have a being alone. And then there's others that you're being alone and getting going is a little tougher. And so these disciplines this week, if you tend to be a doer, the abstinence one is frugality. Try not spending any money this week. Now, it's Thanksgiving, and y'all just laughed. You're like, I'm buying my turkey tomorrow, girl. I know. Do something. Practice some sort of discipline of like resisting. Like, don't shop online. Wait, it's Black Friday. Okay, I am ruining the whole week for you right now. I know. Maybe make a list of the things you need to buy because it's 75% off, and don't buy extra. Do something. Do something to practice. I can do this. I don't have to spend money. I don't have to. Does this make sense? The discipline of engaging is confession. Guys, we should all do this one, but specifically for those of you that are more inward people and you're like, I just think about it on the inside, and it's just, I love being alone. Confess to a friend or a trusted leader something that you're really dealing with. Not like, I was sinful and thought a mean thought. No, like something that's really wreaking havoc in your life, and let them. It's a discipline of engagement. And what's crazy about that is it makes you feel like you're losing control, right? It's like, I don't want to tell anybody because if I tell somebody, it's just going to grow. That's so weird. No, actually, things grow more in the dark. When you keep your shame in the dark, it just wreaks havoc on the inside. Keep your addictions in the dark, it just wreaks havoc. When you bring them to light, they're like, ah! And they can't live. These are your disciplines this week. But I want to just a little bit differently today, because I know I was given the gift of self-control. But I don't think we can produce that fruit much. I think the Bible matters, everything's written so intentionally. And so we've been saying, again, this list of fruit of the Spirit every single Sunday. And when you're sitting, listen, I've been here most of the weeks of this sermon series, or I've only been here for 2, but I can just tell you, I am not a peaceful person. I'm just an impatient type. I have a hard time being kind. Whatever it is, whatever excuse you have, I believe the best place to start to change is with the very first one listed. The fruit of the Spirit is stop. Love. I don't know how loved I am, then I'm not going to experience those other fruits. I'm just not. Like, how can you experience joy if you don't have love? How can you even experience peace in your life if you don't have love? Love is the starting place. And so if you're in this journey going like, I'm down here trying to be kind, maybe revisit love again. Maybe go back to the very beginning and go, I am on a discovery of how loved I am by the God and how I'm designed to love others. That would be the best journey you could give yourself to. And we're about Advent, and the ultimate act of love is that God decided not to stay up there in the place that was perfect, and he came as a little baby that was so in need, himself in front of you and I, so that we could have life and have it to the full, and it's the best thing in the world, and is the major act of love. And so when you experience that kind of love, you will be patient. You will be self-controlled. You will be so gentle because you know how loved you are. Even in the 10 Commandments, there is a commandment that says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and strength. Y'all, we have love in order to have of this other fruit bore in our life. And I think the reason that it's hard, like anytime I'm misbehaving, I've forgotten how loved I am. Anytime. I confess my sin, like it says the kindness of the Lord leads us to repentance. I don't want to confess my sin when I feel like I'm lovely. I don't want to be good in my soul. Sorry, this thing is so terrible. I don't want to be good when I don't feel loved. Hateful. Drive anger. You know? Start with love and see that it begats all the other fruits of the Spirit. And when I am completely out of control, I have a sin to confess. I did in my computer and find videos of people where they just lost control. It's so funny. It's so bad though. It's so funny. How many of you seen the video with the guy in the golf? Okay, anyway, because the language was bad. But it was so funny, and it is the most obvious display of losing self-control ever. This man loses his mind because this other golf cart comes up, and he thinks they have his ball. And he loses it. I mean, he says the most awful things all over the golf ball. And the whole time you're laughing watching it until you're over scrambled eggs. And then you're like, oh gosh, I'm a little similar to the guy in the golf cart. What's happening to me, Lord? You know? Again, the Lord loves you so much. The other thing I shared with our serving team this morning all week is I've prepared for this. How many of you, my kids do this all the time. They grab a piece of fruit out of the bowl and they look at it and they're like, oh, it's bruised, and they chunk it in the trash. And I'm like, no, that was $18. I could have chopped the bruise off and given you the good part. Or my kid used to like get the raspberries out and he'd be like, oh, just throw those $45 raspberries away. You know, like get out the bed, want to throw it away. I think the Lord is so kind. When he sees a piece of fruit that's bruised, he doesn't even take it and lop that part off. He holds it and he loves it and he speaks. I mean, this is so cheesy. But it was like I could see the Lord like holding it in his hands and he mouth. I'm like, are you kissing that fruit? Are you whispering words of life to that fruit? Yeah. And then he moves his hands and the fruit is coming. There is no place in your life that's too bruised or broken that the Lord would trash you. He's not even going to let it off and be like, well, these are the good parts I can work with. I'm not working with this big bruise. He's not like us. But in every way, we want to be like him. But we got to know how loved we are.